with one of my favorite people in the entire world. Literally one of the most inspiring people I know, one of the most just authentically well-rounded, genuine, successful guys that every time I think I've learned everything I can from Hal Elrod, he has more in his tank to teach and more to give. And so such a huge pleasure to be have you on our call today, Hal. I know that you're going to be dropping tons of value on our coaching members. And just for those of you who don't know Hal is he's best known as the author of the #1 best-selling book, The Miracle Morning. Hal died when he was 20. He was dead for 6 minutes. He broke 11 bones. He was told by doctors that he would never walk again. Not only did he walk, but he went on to run a 52-mile consecutive mile ultramarathon, became a Hall of Fame business achiever, massive success in selling Cutco knives door to door, which is super difficult. I want to hear more about that, Hal. Hal's an international keynote speaker and the author of what is widely being regarded as one of the most life-changing books ever written. I can tell you that that's the case for me and many of our friends and colleagues. And Hal, welcome, man. Thanks for being here today.
Mike, this is great, man. I consider you a very highly intelligent human being, and just based on all of our communications, interactions, watching you interview John Berghoff, I've really been really impressed with your leadership, and so to have you say all those nice things about me that I think I probably wrote at some point, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I was just reading your email to me.
Of course, yeah. Say this word for word, Mike. Don't screw it up. That was what probably the email started with.
Exactly.
No, man, thanks for having me on, and everybody that's joining, and thanks for being on. It's an honor. I feel like an honor that anytime anybody cares to listen to me, I'm honored that you would invest your time, and I don't take it lightly. So as a result, I will always give my best to add as much value for you as I can in ways that are actionable and implementable that will improve your life, your business, as quick as humanly possible. So let's do this, man. I'm an open book. We can go wherever you want.
Yeah, hell, why don't we start at the beginning? We start out with young Hal Elrod selling knives, and
I was going to go in. I weighed in at 9 pounds 7 ounces, but not that far back. Okay.
Yeah, we got a hard stop today, I think. So
yeah.
Young guy selling knives door to door for a company that has, I don't know what, hundreds of thousands of salespeople.
60. Back when I was selling, it was like 60,000 active reps at any given time.
And you became #1. Is that right?
I broke a lot of records. So it depends how you quantify it. So my first 10 days, I sold more Cutco than anyone in the western half of the United States has sold in their first 10 days in 50 years that the company been around. But one guy, like 8 years before, this immigrant he sold more than I did in his first 10 days. So, and then I broke a lot of sales records along the way. Was one of the top sales reps, but I was never #1 for an entire year. And I always said that took me a while to figure out how to consistently perform. Like I would break a record for the biggest week, the biggest month, but then I would do what a lot of salespeople do and a lot of real estate agents do, right? Is we're like, I got more money than I really need. So I'm going to chill for a little while and just spend this money. And then you start to run low on finances or the next contest period comes up and then boom, all right, I got to work again. And it took me 5 years before I really had a realization that I've never given it my all in the company for an entire year. What would that be like? How, I have never really fulfilled my potential, I felt like. And so my final year with the company, after being one of the top reps, I set a monumental goal to double my best year ever in sales. So whatever, if you've been in real estate for a while, right, or mortgages or whatever, imagine your best year ever where you felt like you worked really hard. And then how do you double that? And that was my huge challenge for myself. That was I feel like that was the year that I made my quantum leap. I often talk about that at our live event, Best Year Ever. Like that was the year that I finally fulfilled my potential and felt like it went from good to great, if you will. And so, yeah, we can dive into what were the factors there, the lessons that I learned that people can implement into their business and that sort of thing. But that was kind of my Cutco journey.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned a couple of things that really speak to me and speak to other mortgage professionals for sure. And it's the cycle of the ups and downs, right? The roller coaster of having an awesome month. You're 100% commission-based employee. You're going out, you're putting the work in, you have a great month. you step off the gas, you enjoy that time. Next month's not so good. You have to put your foot on the gas again, go out, and you're on this never ending
constant roller coaster. Sure.
Right. And so Scott and I always talk about how do we create a virtuous cycle, right? Versus this vicious cycle of this roller coaster. How do we create a virtuous cycle where we're going up, pausing. We're never really coming back down. And you mentioned that you set a goal to double your sales. And we talk a lot about that in this coaching group. One of our primary goals is for people who are coming into the group, whether they're at the beginning of their career or they're very far advanced and already crushing it, the overarching question, the guiding question that we ask is, how can you double your income? How can you double your volume, double your production? And that's really what guides our program. And obviously getting off that roller coaster is part of that. So I'd love to get tactical with you for a second, because as motivational as you are, I know that it's the tactics that are how you achieved all your success. So how do you do that, Hal? What are some methods, mindsets, tactics, however you want to look at it, that a salesperson could utilize to stop the up and down cycle and actually work towards that virtuous cycle of doubling their production?
Yeah, and I'm going to give you a handful of tips here and strategies. So kind of really a well-rounded philosophy, some internal stuff, some logistical stuff, right? So the first decision that I made was that, again, I told you my realization was I realized going into my last year with Cutco, and actually it was technically I had hit Hall of Fame. So I was done in my mind. I went to a February sales or kickoff conference, which they have every year at Cutco in February. And I only went there to collect my trophies, my awards, and say goodbye to everybody. Like, hey guys, I love you. You're my family. I'm moving on to pursue my other dreams in life. And as I sat in the audience, two sales reps, friends of mine, Brett and Tony, they hit the highest level in sales for our company, which was that double my best year ever, right? And they got a Rolex for that. Now, I could give a crap less about my Rolex. In fact, I sold it because I just didn't care. I kept it for a while. It had sentimental value, but then I thought, this has just been sitting here. I don't wear it, right? So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I watched them get the Rolex. And the point wasn't the Rolex. It was I watched them get recognized for this sales milestone when I was on my way out. And I went, wait a minute. I never did that. I know I'm capable of that. Why didn't I ever do that? And that was where that painful realization in my gut of like, I'm about to leave this company having, I could claim whatever, but having never, if I'm honest with myself, I know that I never fulfilled my potential. And here's the reality is I went like every day, there's a great philosophy that, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And in the Miracle Morning book, in my book, I talk about that more important than the secret to achieving more in life isn't doing more, it's becoming more, right? And what I realized is if I leave this company, and I want you to think about, it's not just leaving a company, it's if I go from one day to the next, having never fulfilled my potential, what makes me think that the next venture that I go into is going to be any different? And again, taking it down to the microcosm, what makes you think that tomorrow is different than today? If you settle for less than you're capable of today, or this week, or this month, or this year, what makes you think the next one's going to be any different? And we have to, at some point, draw our line in the sand and decide, I'm fulfilling my potential. And the reason is to become the person that you need to be to create everything that you want for your life. I can't think of a better reason. They say that like you set a goal, right? What goal are you committed to? But more important than the goal is the why, right? What's the compelling reason why that's going to get you up in the morning? Like everybody wants to be a millionaire. Most people want to be a millionaire because there's a lot of great things that come along with that. Oh, financial freedom. It's great. But I think most people have that goal. I had that goal, but I was never really emotionally invested in it because it was just a cool goal that other people had and it seemed like it makes sense. Once I got clear that I want to be a millionaire, to provide financial freedom for myself and my family, because we deserve nothing less than that, right? And that I have a responsibility to myself and to the people that I love. And I also went even deeper and I went, you know what? I want to be a philanthropist. I want to donate a lot of money to people that don't have the opportunities that I have, whether because they're in other countries or they were born in into poverty where they don't have the same influences that I've been blessed to have that have shaped me into the person that I am. I want to be able to help those people. And I can only do it if I'm making enough money to support my family and have a bunch left over to give to them. So now the why is so compelling. And going back to my thought process on how I doubled my best year ever, that initial why, to become the person that I need to be to create everything I want for my life. I can't think of a more universal why that applies to every single person listening or watching us right now, right? For everyone, that's the universal why. Why do you do anything and do it to the best and fulfill your potential? Because if you don't do that now, what makes you think tomorrow is going to be different? And ultimately, you've got to become the person that you need to be with the qualities, the mindset, the habits, the skills, the characteristics. You've got to develop those in what you're doing now to become the person that you need to be to create what you want for your future. Even if you're like, I'm only doing this for temporary. Maybe some of you are in this for a little while you have another career in mind or something. I don't know, right? Whether it's you're a lifetime, this is going to be your career for a lifetime, or you're planning on doing it for a little bit. Like when I used to speak at colleges, and I'd share this lessons to college students, and I'd go, look, school isn't about school. It's not about what you learn. It's not about the subject matter. It's not about the grades. It's about becoming the person that you need to be to create everything you want after school, right? Are you developing the discipline while you're in college, the habits, the mindset, the qualities, the characteristics of an extraordinarily successful human being, so that is who you are in everything you do in your life, right? How you do anything is how you do everything. So that's the first thing that I would share, Mike, is really getting present to that universal purpose to do anything at your best, because the long-term vision of who you need to be to create everything that you really want for your life. So I'll pause there and we can go, into I got some other ideas, but if you have questions.
No, let's just end it, man. I'm fired up. I got a bunch of shit I got to go take care
of. All right,
of
me too.
Dude, that was beautiful. Some of the things that really spoke to me about that were, talking about what you're capable of, about what versus the results that you actually achieve, and never falling in love with potential. Because potential, without actualizing that potential, then you're never actually accomplishing anything. And I have people all the time in our business that say, look, I know I need to make these phone calls, right? I know I need to do this lead generation, this prospecting, but I can't get myself to do the things that I know I need to do to be successful. And everybody's always looking for a way to overcome that. And it seems really cliche, and you said it, and I say it, we all say it, but it's super, super cliche to tell people, well, it's about the why, right? Because everybody says that these days. But the fact is, it's the truth. So how do we get through the fact that it's a cliche? How do we get through this, like the bullshit, mystical why? And how do we tactically find something that's actually going to, how can we do a deeper level motivation to get somebody who knows they want something to do the hard work that it takes to actually accomplish it, without just saying, what's your why? What's your bigger purpose? Are there strategic tactics in place as a salesperson that you might be able to lean into for that?
Yeah. And do me a favor. And the first thing you said sparked the next thing I'm going to go into. So after I answer this question, write down a note, just how do you get yourself to do the things that you know you need to do? Right. Yeah. You mentioned that's big. Everyone's biggest challenge, right? It's like, I know I need to eat better. I know I need to make more calls. I know I need to blink, but how do I get myself to do that? I don't have the motivation or whatever. Yeah. So that'll be the segue into the next one. So make sure I can't forget. But here's what I encourage you to do. And I'm going to give a little training here on affirmations. Affirmations have kind of a bad rap in my opinion. But they are I believe one of the most, if not the single most effective strategy or tactic to become the person that you need to be through, beyond action. Obviously, if you do the things and you generate the results, you become a better version of yourself, right? When I did double my sales that year, I was like, well, I'm a different person because of who I had to become to do that. But how do you start that process, right? How do you start? What's the first thing that you do? And I believe that it's you put it in writing, you articulate it, and affirmations are the most effective way to do that. Now, they have a bad rap for a few reasons. Number one, Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live. If you ever watched Saturday Night Live in the 1990s, there was a character who had a little show called Daily Affirmations or Positive Affirmations with Stuart Smalley. And he had an exaggerated list, and he'd look in this long mirror and he'd go, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me, right? And it was kind of goofy. And so, first of all, if you watch that, you're like, affirmations are silly. I'm not going to talk to myself, right? The second reason that affirmations have been really ineffective is the way they've been taught by self-help gurus for, I don't know, decades, for as long as I've known. One of two ways. Number one is this lying to yourself strategy, where they say, look, if you want to be a millionaire, you have to use the two most powerful words in the English language, I am, and then put those in front of whatever it is that you want to be, right? So if you want to be a millionaire, just say it. I am a millionaire. I am a millionaire. I am a millionaire. And say it over and over and over until you believe it. In other words, until you trick yourself into believing some untrue thing, right? Yeah. But we're not stupid. So if you say an affirmation that's rooted in something that's not true, at least presently it's not true, your brain you're going to call bullshit on yourself. You're going to go, I'm a millionaire. No, I'm not. I am a millionaire. No, I'm not. Like, you know, right? You're not even a thousandaire. What am I talking? I'm full of shit. I'm not, right? No, I'm not. So that's like lying to yourself is never the most effective strategy, right? The second problem with affirmations is they're taught in this flowery, passive language that makes you feel good in the moment, but doesn't produce results. So an example of a money affirmation is money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance, right? No, I don't know anyone that got rich from no effort, just sitting on their couch repeating affirmations, right? The whole law of attraction. I think there's some truth to it when it's combined with the law of action, right? But just in and of itself. And here's why that people like those affirmations. There are some people that like those, and I'll use hippie as a general term. But imagine somebody that's kind of a hippie. They start doing the affirmations because their money's not where they want it to be, and they repeat the affirmations every day, and they love their affirmations. And, and if you check in with them and go, do you do affirmations, around money or anything? They go, yeah, let me tell you my affirmation. Money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance. They go, gosh, every morning I say that, I feel so good. And then you go, how long have you been saying that? And they go, probably about 3 years. Go, how are your finances? Go, terrible. but every morning I'm reminding myself that it's only a matter of time before the money starts flowing, right? And then they die, and they're like, I loved affirmations, but right? They didn't work for me. I want affirmations that produce results. If I'm doing an affirmation on finances, I want my bank account balance to grow. If I'm doing an affirmation on losing weight or getting in shape, I want to look in the mirror and be like, these affirmations are freaking working. This is amazing. Right? And so those are not, so using a lying to yourself, or this flowery passive language are never the optimum strategy. Here are 4 steps to creating affirmations that produce extraordinary results for you. Number 1 is, what are you committed to creating? What are you committed to? So it's real simple. Instead of I am a millionaire, which no, you're not, or no, I'm not, or if you are, great, but why would you affirm something you already are? That doesn't, right? So I am committed to becoming a millionaire. Very different. Very different. You definitely know you want it, right? But you're not telling yourself you are it. And if you want to get more specific, you can go, I'm committed to becoming a millionaire within 2 years, or by December 29th of 2029, whatever, right? But you get specific on what you're committed to and specifically when that's going to be. Number 2, why is that important to you? And we don't need to go in detail because we talked about that. What's the why? When I went from being wanting, when I want to be a millionaire or whatever, to actually going, wait a minute, what's like deeply meaningful to that, right? Why? In fact, why is that deeply meaningful? I'm going to write that down because it's a better way of saying it than I normally do. Mike, you're so genius. You bring out the best in me.
I'll just text it to you, man. You don't have to write.
Oh, thank you. That would be awesome. Oh, beautiful. Even better. You keep getting better every minute. Right. So why is that deeply meaningful to you? Number 3 is the how. How will you ensure that you achieve that result? And that's the activities, right? So and we're going to get more into this with the tactical stuff in the next section here. But in terms of when I was selling, right, I was committed to making X number of phone calls, per day. because I knew I had done the averages, and I knew that if I did that number of calls, I'd hit my goal. The law of averages would work out. It was almost a foregone conclusion. At least I'd be real close to it to where I can, if I was a little short, I'd be close enough based on my averages that I could hit it, right? So the how are you going to generate that result? And then number 4 is, when will you take the necessary actions? Text me that as well. Yeah, text me all this stuff, please. When will you generate the necessary actions? So give you an example. Going back to my best year ever, I am committed to selling, $200,000 of Cutco kitchen knives in 2005, right? That was what I was committed to. Number 2, why? To become the person that I need to be to create everything that I've ever wanted for my life for the rest of my life. Number 3, stop calling me. You like my Ice Ice baby ringer? It's funny in a grocery store when like other adults are there and it's in my pocket and I can't get it out, and like these women are looking and they're like, who is this? How old is this guy? Dude?
Drop the phone and kick it under the produce stand.
Yeah. I'm like, so anyway, I used to have an even goofier one. Anyway, so, but, all right, where was I at? So number 3, and then how? So I'm committed to making 20 phone calls a day, 5 days a week. And then when? Well, 5 days, 5 days a week, but it was literally Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And then I went as far as to say, and if by at the end of Friday, if I'm not on track for my goal, I'll make 20 calls on Saturday and possibly Sunday, right? So those are affirmations that are rooted in not falsehood, not fantasy, not some feel-good BS, right? But this is what the result you're committed to generating, why it's deeply meaningful to you, how specifically you're virtually going to ensure that you can't fail, and then when you're going to take those actions. And now you're affirming those affirmations are practical, they're results-oriented, they're action-oriented, and you're reinforcing every day your level of commitment. And the only way you're not going to achieve your goal now is if you just say, screw you affirmations, I don't care that I'm reading you. I'm just going to ignore you. And I'm going to, right? And of course, that if you want to do that, that's fine. But the bottom line is what we remind ourselves every day, what we keep top of mind, it becomes important to us. We tend to live in alignment with our dominant thoughts. And when our dominant thoughts are around our highest goals, our biggest commitments, the actions necessary, and when we're committed to taking them, right? It's a game changer. And the last piece I'll say to that, or I'll add a tactic, if you will, is get accountability. I would have those affirmations. I would partner with someone else in your office, on your team, a friend, somebody in your business, and I would have a weekly accountability call where you share your affirmations, or you have them each other, and you commit and you check in with each other, and you commit to what you're, so they know. What they know, number 3, that's the how. They know what actions you are committed to taking, how many calls, what days, etc. And then every week you're checking in with that person. And if you want to take it a step further, what I did the year that I sold, I doubled my best year ever. I formed an accountability group. I called them the Ultimate Club because the highest level in our company was called the Ultimate Club. So I said, hey, let's have our weekly ultimate accountability. It was the Ultimate Accountability Club, right? And every week, and I had about 20 people on this call, and I didn't get paid for it. It wasn't a commission thing. It was just literally, part of my purpose in life is helping other people do whatever I've done. And I thought, to really be fulfilled, I've got to lead other people on this journey with me, right? And so I led these accountability calls. Well, guess what? When I shared what I was committed to doing with 20 people who I was the leader of the group and I was the one that formed the group, I'm not going to not do I would look like a total jackass to show up and be, hey guys, I didn't do my calls again. How'd everybody else do, right? They're like, Hal's the worst leader ever. Why are we on this call? You know what I mean? So that's essentially, that is, I think that's an important piece. If self-accountability is not your strength, and by the way, even if it is your strength, it is a fact that we can always rise to a higher level when someone else is holding us accountable, because we always will, almost always. I mean, there's a level, like I'm pretty self-accountable, but I don't do everything. There's always more I could do or more effective, right? So having an accountability group that not only can hold me accountable to my actions, but also can help me reevaluate my actions and go, maybe, hey guys, is there anything you see that maybe I should tweak here that I could be doing better or more of or less of or different? And having that feedback is also invaluable.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, honestly, though, that method of affirmations, of creating affirmations, really speaks to me because it does bridge that gap between, that the overall category of hippie that we use. Well, I'm fine with that, right? I'm fine with touchy feely shit. Everybody knows that.
I'm kind of a hippie. I'm like a business hippie, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like I'm the same. But there's some people who can't stand that. And I think that this way of doing it bridges that gap so perfectly. Sam Beckett made a comment that, oh, Hal must love Tony Robbins. I'm sure you do love Tony Robbins, but I got to tell you, like, from my perspective, this blows away the way Tony Robbins does his affirmations or incantations, whatever he calls them. Because Tony Robbins is the guy that says money's flowing to me effortlessly and blah, blah, blah.
Does he? I love Tony, but I haven't studied this stuff in so long. It's not taught. I don't remember it.
Exactly. So I'm giving you credit as the originator for that. You're not a Tony Robbins copycat. You're the originator.
I do love Tony, to be clear, though. And he's one of my heroes. I mean, he's the guy that coming up that I studied and that I looked at and that, into this day, I mean, I read his book, Money, is on my shelf right there. So yeah, so all respect to Tony. I'm a
totally agree. Totally agree.
I got to turn my ringer off. Why do I have this on? Right.
Sam also asked, can Hal give an example of how you might hold someone else accountable? I think that's a really good question because we do have an accountability call that we started, and many of us are in our own private accountability groups. And so asking to be held accountable is one thing, but I think oftentimes people struggle with what's the best way to hold somebody else accountable? And I'll give you a pass if you don't have a ready answer on that, but do you have any thoughts around that?
I'll make something up here in the next 12 seconds. So I think the best way to hold somebody accountable is to never to condemn them for what they did or didn't do or right, or, never to make them feel bad. Feeling bad, there is some value to feeling bad, but here's the best way to make them feel bad is you don't make them feel bad. You let them choose to feel bad by asking them questions, right? So you say, hey, all right, Joe, did you follow through with your 20 phone calls, Monday through Friday and hit your 100 calls for the week? Oh, no, I only did 12 calls and blah, 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 blah. Right. Okay, Joe, so if you continue on that path, if that repeats itself this week, are you going to will you reach your goal? In fact, if you only made, you can calculate, 50% of your calls, that's statistically, you're going to hit about 50% of your goal. So what needs to be adjusted this week? Right. So just let that to me is the best coaching, right? Is you let them tell you, right? And you could say, hey, Joe, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that's actually a great first question. How do you feel about your effort this week, about the activities? I don't feel good. Right. I mean, let them tell you. Right. Yeah. And then go, okay, so what needs to be changed? And by the way, Joe, and here's actually a really kind of important kind of, advanced tip here is, I always like when I coach people, I don't do one-on-one coaching anymore so much, but when I did one-on-one coaching, I would always ask or I would always first kind of enlighten. I'd say, look, those calls not being made need to be made up because at the end of the year, if you miss, 30% of your calls this week and maybe you hit them all next week, but then you miss 10% the following week and then you hit 80%, right? I go, at the end of the year, that adds up to a huge call deficit, which is essentially a huge revenue. I mean, right? Your numbers you're going to be short by 30% or whatever. So you need to look at, okay, you were short 80 calls this week or 40 calls this week. Can you spread those and make 20 calls a day extra over the next, whatever, right? Over the next 2 weeks right? We've got to fit those in somewhere. You've got to make up for those.
Totally agree. Yeah. If you're holding yourself accountable for 2 face-to-face meetings a week and you have 2 one week and 1 the next, you don't go into that 3rd week and say, my goal is 2, right? Yeah. Your goal is 3.
You're not starting at 0. Yeah. You're starting at whatever. Yeah. You've got to be playing, keeping the whole year in your mindset.
Yeah. Well, Hal, I knew we got about 15 minutes left because I know you got to run. And as I suspected, there's just too much value to be had in the amount of time. So I want to kind of shift gears, but you did talk about, you brought something up and I took a note and maybe you answered this, I don't know, but I took the note about how do you get yourself to do the thing that you need to do, but you don't want to?
No, I didn't cover it. I mean, I'm sure the stuff I'm covering is part of, affirmations help you do it for sure. But here's the real tactic. And I really call this the secret to success in selling. Like this is my secret, if you will. This is of everything that I have figured out in my selling career and that I've taught. I mean, this is the single one of, if not the single most important strategy. And first, a little bit of background on how this came up. So the year was 2000. It was the spring of 2000. Man, I haven't told this story in a while. Hopefully I can remember it all. But spring of 2000, and I was, I had a goal that year of, I don't know what my, a pretty high goal. And one day I think I did my 20 calls, right? And I did my 20 phone calls, and I set up 0 appointments, right? And I had just some, it was not good, like rude people hung up on, just like the worry of all those phone time sessions where you just feel like terrible about yourself. And you're like, why would anyone treat me like that? I'm a good person, right? I get like a little victim mentality, the salesman victim mentality. And so I ended the phone session, and I had that night, I had one of those, at night, sometimes you're falling asleep and you got to wake up and turn the light on and write this down because you have these great ideas. Well, I had this realization. I thought, I am emotionally attached to my results. And that's human nature. We are emotionally attached to our results, period, right? Somebody cuts you off in the freeway, right? You give an emotional reaction to that. Someone's rude to you, you don't hit a sales goal, they don't buy from you, they don't show to an appointment. We have emotions that are usually not very positive when those things happen, right? And so I realized I am emotionally attached to my results. And when I don't have good results, I experience emotions that don't serve me to generate the results that I want moving forward. In fact, they're counterproductive. When I have negative, when I get off the phone, I don't feel good about the phone calls I made. I don't really feel like making phone calls in the morning. So my motivation goes down when I have negative results, right? And everybody I know can relate to this. And I realized at the end of the year, again, this was like January, February, so it was the beginning of the year. I go, at the end of the year, how much I sell has nothing to do with my day-to-day. I won't say nothing to do with, but it's not dependent on a bad day. The law of averages equate. There are some days I make 20 calls like today that were terrible, and I got 0 appointments. And some days I make 20 calls and I schedule 8 appointments, and it's freaking amazing. And those 8, it's the averages always work out. So I realized, why do I stay on this emotional roller coaster? And then it hit me that at the end of the year, how much I sell by the end of the year will be directly in proportion to how many phone calls I made over the course of the year in total. Not how any day went, or how even, I could have a bad day, a bad week, maybe even a bad month. And in fact, I really found that if you kept working consistently, your 20 or 30 or 40, your numbers may be different. You might go, I got to make 80 calls today, Hal, whatever they are for you, right? When you make that, I found that it's almost impossible. I don't think I ever had a bad month. I had a few times where I had 3 weeks in a row that I wanted to, shoot myself. I was like, how could, because you have a bad week and you're like, all right, I'm putting that behind me. This week's going to be great. Tony Robbins, right? That declarator, get all fired up. You're like, I'm going to do it this week. And then when you have 2 bad weeks in a row, you're like, oh my gosh. And then 3 in a row, and you're like, I think I should quit. I'm literally thinking, maybe I should get another job. I hate the way this feels, right? So, but I found that you really can never have a bad month. As long as I worked 20, my daily calls, I never had a bad month. I always, the 4th week, law of averages always kicked in. So I realized at the end of the year, it's how many calls I've made. And so then I changed the rules of the game that I was playing. And here's where this is the lesson. I went, I'm going to make 20 calls a day every day. And at the end of my 20 calls, I am a success. I have succeeded for the day. It doesn't matter if anyone set up with me. And in fact, when I changed the rules around, whenever somebody was rude on the phone, or like, they'd go, oh yeah, so I'm not interested. Bye. Like the initial hang up. You're like, oh, well, you didn't even give me a chance, right? That used to bother me, and now I would go, because I would always tally my calls every day till I got to 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then I would have calls, contacts set. So every day, calls, contacts, set. How many calls, how many contacts, how many set. And now when somebody hung up on me and they're like, not interested, bye. Instead of, because I had a new rule, I went, that's the fastest call I can make. I'm that much closer to my 20 calls. And here's what I called it: half hours of power. I could make 10 calls every 30 minutes. That was about average. And at the end of my 10, so I made 10 calls as fast as I could. This is important. This is the strategy. And again, I haven't told it in a long time, so it's all coming back. But you make your 10 calls as fast as you can. And then in that 30 minutes, you earn yourself a short break in whatever's left over in the 30 minutes. So that helps you get over the whole making a call and then fiddling with, checking email and then, right? Because the idea is I'd make my half hours of power strategy, and that is a Tony Robbins phrase. It's a totally different strategy here, but it's his phrase. Half hours of power is I make 10 calls as fast as I can. Let's say I get them done in 15 minutes. Well, I now have 15 minutes till my next half hour of power starts to play Words with Friends on my phone, check Facebook on the computer, close my eyes and take a power nap, grab a bite to eat out of the cooler, drinks, whatever, right? Just whatever I want, go talk to a coworker and distract them from their 20 calls, like whatever. And so that was it. And so when someone hung up on me, I'm like, nice, I'm that much closer to a break. Because there's so much psychology around this that I don't have time to go into all the depth of it, right? But we operate best when we're working in short spurts, when we have an immediate pleasurable goal or reward that's very close in front of us, right? Which is it's less than 30 minutes away, right? It's 10, 15, 20 minutes away. We get some sort of quick serotonin rush, dopamine hit, right? From making those 10 calls. And then as soon as those 10 calls are up, we get a quick, 5-10 minute break. And then boom, next half hour power starts, you make your next 10 calls. So that's how I got myself to do it. And whenever my manager would say, Hal, what's your weekly sales goal? I used to have a sales goal for him. That's how I operated. And that's part of what caused the negative emotion. If you're not on track for your goal, you tend to feel bad. You don't feel good. And you go, I'm going to fail. And then you lose the drive to keep pushing because you're like, what's the point? I'm so far off. It's not even going to happen, right? So I told my manager, he'd go, what's your sales goal this week? And I'd go, I'm shooting for $5,000. But honestly, my goal that you can write down is I'm going to make 20 calls a day, 5 days a week minimum, and up to 7 days if I'm not on track for that goal. He'd go, okay, but can I count you for $5,000? I'm like, you can count on me for whatever 20 calls a day produces, And he was like, it frustrated him, but for me it was like, and it was great. I'd finish my 20 calls for the day, and then I'd always go lay. I lived in Central California. It's hot in the summer. I'd go lay by the pool for an hour until I had my first appointment. Then I'd go. It was just like the most chill life. And here's the best part. I'll wrap it up in the bow with this. So the next 3 months, I was the number one rep in the entire company. Okay, so did the strategy work? Immediately it worked. I was number one out of 60,000 reps for the spring. I finished as number one for those 4 months. But the best part is I had the least stressful job of every other sales rep in the company. They were all still riding the emotional roller coaster. I had no emotional roller coaster. I made 20 calls a day, and then I showed up to the appointments that I had, and I enjoyed the rest of my life. That was it. And to me, that is the secret to success, not only to hit your sales goals, but to do it in a way where your stress level goes way down and you just get to enjoy life a heck of a lot more than most salespeople.
Wow. You heard it here. That's it. I mean, honestly, that's totally it. I mean, we talked about that before, Hal, just disconnecting from the result and focusing on the activity. But what a beautiful way to put it. Really makes it come alive for how somebody can incorporate that into their business. Because one of the things you said that I took a note on was the quick reward after doing the activity, knowing like the psychology behind knowing that you've got something coming up to get you to power through the activity. I love that. And how I said I'd let you go after about 45 minutes. We're coming up on that. There's so much more I wanted to ask you about. So let's do this. I want to give you some options about what to talk about.
I like that idea.
In closing. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you about was the Miracle Morning, right? We talked a lot about you as a salesperson, but that was a very long time ago for you. And
Sure.
And you've evolved quite a bit since then. So the Miracle Morning, I know you spent over a decade building a following of a couple 100,000 or more people who are passionate supporters of yours. You've turned the Miracle Morning into a worldwide movement, which is pretty insane. You've sold, I don't know how many books. I'm guessing
600,000.
600,000.
Who's counting?
600,432.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, 433. Yeah. So that's one thing we could talk about that kind of evolution of when you wrote that book and how you've turned it into the worldwide movement that it's become. But we could also talk a little bit about some lessons that have come out of the most recent adversity that you faced in your life, if you want to go there. I don't know if you do.
Yeah. Let's do this, Mike. If you're okay with it, just because I know we're down to 5 minutes, and I could probably go. I think I could go 10. So let's do it. But let me I've got some notes on this that I'm going to pull up, and it'll actually tie in everything that you just. And I did cut you and I cut you off, so I'll cut myself off after this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the Miracle Morning in the kind of context of the most powerful lessons that I've learned over the last year. So was there any other options that you wanted to add to that? Or?
No, I heard you talk something about being effective versus being productive, but I have a sense that will be built into the lesson you're about to share with us.
Sure, got it. So if I were to if you're taking notes, you can write down what matters most, right? And that's the premise of kind of what the dominant question in my mind. Mike's heard me talk about it at our mastermind, Quantum Leap Mastermind. I talked about it that's how I opened up the Best Year Ever Blueprint this year. Is this what matters most question? And the beauty of it is, it's a question that there are some universal truths that matter most to all of us, right? Like health, for example. If you don't have any health, and that would mean you're dead. And it's hard to achieve any other goals that I'm aware of. I haven't died, but I have died a couple of times. But anyway, so I don't know what happens after you're dead. So I don't know. That's a different conversation. But oh, nice. The yard people are here. I don't know if you guys can hear that. It's like they're mowing and blowing and stuff.
I can't hear it.
Can't hear it. Okay, cool. It's because of this mic. I got a good mic.
Yeah. Filter and everything. Look at that.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So health is a universal what matters most, but then really what matters most, if you have a family, right, that may be on the top of your list, whereas if you don't have a family, that's probably not on the list, right? Well, everybody has a family, but not like a wife and kids or whatever, husband and kids. So the point is, it's an evolving question, and it's one that I think I think it's the most important question for us to ask on a daily or at least a regular ongoing basis. What matters most in life, in the big picture, in my life? What matters most to me in terms of my values? What matters most in my business? What matters most to hitting my goals this year? What matters most today on my to-do list, right? So, I mean, literally, it's the fact that most is in the question. It's one of the most important questions that you can ask, right? And so here's what I've come up with that matters most to me, in my opinion. And I believe, again, these are what are all universal truths. So I believe that these are universal for all of us. Number one is what I call physical optimization. So physical optimization, would be, you could call that your health, but there's more than that. I've done some podcasts where I talk about eating for energy, right? And the idea that, there's a lot said about time management and productivity, but really, arguably more important than time management is energy management. And actually, it was the book, The Power of Full Engagement, that I read a decade ago that talked about that concept, that energy management is more important than time management. Let's say you're great at managing your time, you get your schedule organized, your to-dos are in there, right? Your calendar's perfect. But let's say you eat a terrible diet, and you might think you eat a good diet. We'll talk about that here. We can go a little bit. But let's say you had a chicken sandwich for lunch, right? And 5 Hour Energy, the company that makes the little bottles, right, of energy in a bottle, they often, their commercials, like, you ever experienced that that crashed in the afternoon around 2 p.m. and everyone's like, oh yeah, I need that. I need 5 Hour Energy. No, you ate a chicken sandwich at lunch that's mostly white bread or any bread that your body doesn't even make sense of, and it has trouble digesting, right? It's pure gluten. And then usually, unless you got, some sort of cage-free, whatever chicken, you're probably eating chicken that's processed. It's got all sorts of hormones in it that your body doesn't like, right? So you're digesting this food, and that's why you're tired, because, get this, digesting food is arguably the most energy-draining process that you can go through, right? Think about how you feel after Thanksgiving dinner, right? Or, you eat it like 4 p.m. and then you're taking a 3-hour nap or whatever, because your body is so tired digesting food. So anyway, so the point is, health should be a number one priority. And I'll just give you a quick resource. If you haven't seen the movie Forks Over Knives, there's a lot. What the Health? There's a bunch. Forks Over Knives is one I always recommend. It's kind of it's an older school one, but I think it's free on Netflix. Go watch Forks Over Knives. But it's arguably the most important change you can make if you want to live, not only have a lot of energy and live your full potential now, but if you actually want to be disease-free. The number one cause of death in the United States is, I believe it's heart disease. At least it was last time I checked. That is not, largely caused by our diet, right? And cancer is number two, largely caused by our diet. Now, my cancer that I had was not caused by diet, which is why I thought I would never get cancer, because I ate such a healthy diet, but there are other causes. Another thing is your circle of influence, right? So the second thing I would say matters most is your circle of influence. Your family being the first part. Now, everybody's different. Maybe you don't have a relationship with your family. I'm not going to tell you who's important in your life, but the people that are most important in your life is your circle of influence. And are you adding value for them? Are you nurturing those relationships? For me, I always said family was my number one priority, my number one, in my life. but my schedule didn't reflect that. And I find that most of us choose productivity. We value productivity at the highest level. Think about this, by the way. This is a real gut check for all of us. Do you value productivity above health and relationships? Now, you might say, no, of course I don't. Well, what does your schedule say? What does your dietary choices say, right? When you're tired, Mike, let me ask you, if you're feeling tired in the middle of the day, now, granted, maybe it's because that chicken sandwich you ate at lunch, but if you're feeling tired in the middle of the day, what's your body telling you that you need?
Caffeine.
Yes. Spoken from a true productivity, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, but that's what we do.
Rest. Yeah.
It's telling you you need rest. You need to rest. That might be a 20-minute cat nap in your chair, whatever. But what do? We choose productivity over health, and we power through it with caffeine. And Eckhart Tolle, in one of his books, said that, and I'm paraphrasing, but when you do that too much, over years and years and years, which I did, your body will finally make you sick, give you some sort of disease. I got cancer. Because if you're not giving it what it needs, it will literally create a condition that forces you to rest. So I'm telling you, don't wait. Don't wait to change your diet. That should be a number one priority. And I'm telling you, my diet, and I don't think that I'm perfect, I have all the answers, but over 10 years of me reading dozens and dozens of books and watching documentaries, it's a primarily plant-based diet. So in the morning, I have a smoothie. For lunch, I have a salad. I eat plant-based snacks in between, like raw almonds and sometimes salted almonds, but like organic, not blue diamond almonds, GMO almonds. No, so plant-based. And then at dinner, I usually have, I'll have like a small portion of grass-fed beef or some, again, cage-free chicken, wild-caught salmon, right? So a healthy meat. And I only have meat about 3 or 4 nights a week. And then I have some sort of veggie dinner, the rest of the time. But so that is what I've found to be kind of the ideal dinner. And there's so many books out there, the China study that you can read, that you reinforce so much science behind that meat should be like the smallest part of our diet, right? And that plants, living foods, organic, non-pesticide ridden foods should be. And again, you can see I'm passionate about this topic because I believe it's so important. Circle of influence. I realized that my family wasn't getting much time with me. And so, or they were getting time, but it was like at the end of the day when I was exhausted and I was giving, they were getting leftover dad. My kids got leftover dad, right? I'm at my best during the morning. That's when I'm fresh, I'm right. Or, they were getting leftover dad. So now what do? I play with my kids every morning. Now I take them to school and alternate with my wife. It used to be her doing, I'm like, you're the mom, you take them to school. I got to work. I got to support the family. Our friend John Vroman said it best. He realized he had a breakthrough one day and someone asked what he did. He said, I'm a speaker, I'm an author, I'm a coach. And then he went home and he thought about that and he went, wait a minute, I'm a dad and I'm a husband. And those other roles are just supporting roles to me being a dad and a husband. And for me, I look at it as I go, my kids aren't going to remember how many mortgage payments I paid, right? That's not going to change their life and make them I owe it. I have an affirmation that I read every day that says my number one responsibility is the quality of life, the emotional well-being and the mindset of my children. And that is my number one priority, right? And then last but not least, we'll wrap it up on this, is fulfilling your potential. I believe that's one of the most important things you can do. And here's why. Not just for your selfish, egocentric reasons, which, by the way, I'm not judging those. I have my own egocentric, selfish reasons. I want to be successful. I want to be important. I want to be whatever, right? I mean, we all have those needs to meet. But for me, here, there's it goes back to the deeper why, the meaningful why, is I believe that we have a responsibility to the people that we lead and the people that we love to fulfill our potential, because only then can we lead them to fulfill theirs. I'll say that again. I believe we have a responsibility to the people that we lead and the people that we love to help them fulfill their potential, because only then, or to fulfill our own potential, because only then can we lead them to fulfill theirs, right? So, it's not about just you. It's about the people that you care about. They're watching you. How you live your life gives them permission to do the same. If you're eating unhealthy food and you're going out to lunch and you're ordering pizza or a cheeseburger for lunch, right, every day, then they're like, oh, that's cool. I guess, hey, right, Mike's a cool dude and he's awesome and I want to be like Mike, and so I'll eat this way, right? However we live our lives gives those we love permission to do the same. So fulfill your potential. And the last thing on that is How do you do that? It's called the Miracle Morning. And this is really, there are roughly 500,000 people around the world that will literally, they will tell you can go to the Miracle Morning community on Facebook, that the Miracle Morning has transformed their life in the most profound ways that even when I wrote the book, never imagined possible. I have thousands of emails now. Hal, Miracle Morning saved my marriage. Hal, Miracle Morning, I doubled my income. Hal, Miracle Morning, I finally started the business, on the side, and I left my career to start the business I've been dreaming of for years. Hal, I finally wrote that book. Hal, I overcame my depression. I mean, I wouldn't believe the stuff if I didn't have these emails and see the transformations myself. Go to Amazon.com. It's one of the highest rated books on Amazon for a reason. I've never solicited, I don't pay people for reviews. There's no fake reviews on there, but there's like 2,300 5-star reviews. And just go check it out on Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble, but I always say Amazon's a place to read the reviews. Barnes & Noble, you don't get to read those, But yeah, that's it. And if you want, go to miraclemorning.com. You can download some freebies to test the water. You can get the first few chapters of the book for free. You can get a 15-minute video of me teaching the Miracle Morning for free. You can get a 60-minute audio interview of me going more in depth on the Miracle Morning. That's all at miraclemorning.com. Or if you're ready to just jump in with both feet, go to Amazon. You can get the book. All right, Mike, that's all I got.
Man, well, I can attest to all of that. Miracle Morning made a huge difference in my life, really put me on another path. Everybody I know that's read it and actually incorporated some of it, not all of it, sometimes all of it, right? But incorporate what works for you. But the basic tenets of the savers, when you do them, I don't always do them early in the morning, and all honesty, Hal, sometimes I do them late, but I do them nonetheless. And it's made a huge difference in my life, and being around people like you in the Miracle Morning community has probably been the biggest game changer in my entire life. To this date, in terms of how I view my future, how I view the activities that I'm taking in the present, the type of person I want to become. And so if you're listening to this and you have not read the Miracle Morning, you need to turn this off and go read that book, and then come back and listen again and again and again.
It's about a 3-hour read, so it's actually 3 hours from now you can have everything you need to transform your life.
It's a quick read. Hal, thank you so much, man. It's such a pleasure talking to you. I'm so glad that you're looking great and feeling great, and everything's going well for you again. I know you got to run. Before you go, is there anything else? Is there any big insight that you've developed over the past year of your life that you can speak in 30 seconds or less that you want to leave us with? I'm
glad you asked. I always have an answer. But seriously, this is important. I think that we all live with this monkey on our back, that where we compare ourselves to either other people and where they are along their journey, or we compare ourselves to where we want to be, and we want to be there now. We have this thing where we have trouble really understanding that it takes time to get where we want. At the end of the day, we tend to look at, okay, am I where I want to be ultimately in my life, in my business? No, I failed again today. Damn it, right? I didn't get there. And we might not think that consciously, but unconsciously, there's this constant stress, this monkey on our back. And here's what I'll share with you. When you finally get to the place that you've been working for so hard and for so long, you almost never wish it would have happened any sooner. Instead, you look back and you see the perfection in the journey, in the timing, in the challenges and the adversity along the way. So with that hindsight, looking back, realize you don't need to be stressed, right? Every day, truly just live in gratitude. Be grateful for every moment. Be grateful for every lesson that comes your way, even if it comes in a painful way. Be grateful for every moment of your journey. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the process. And while you maintain a healthy sense of urgency toward getting where you want to go. So be at peace with where you are while you maintain that sense of urgency to, take action every day. Commit to your process without being emotionally attached to your results. Those 20 calls a day or 40 calls a day or whatever they are, right? And just enjoy it. And at the end of the 20 calls, pat yourself on the back. Don't worry about how things are in the moment. It's always temporary. As long as you're doing the things that will get you where you want to go, your success is inevitable. It's only a matter of time. So you might as well enjoy the journey.
Hal, thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your mentorship. Thank you for your friendship. Love you, buddy.
Love you too, brother. Talk to you soon, Mike.
Peace.
Take care, everybody.